you received my message, either verbally or remind, to please take the survey. It's on Kia. It's based on when you read that one article and you answered questions on Kia about is college worth it. I just want to know your reading strategies. I just want to know when you read and you read something difficult, do you just keep reading and think, I don't get what I just read, but Or do you stop? Do you go back? Do you think, wait a minute, what's the saying? Do you make little markings? Do you underline words? Do you look up words that you don't know the definition of? Do you try and figure out using context clues? What are your strategies? I want to know. And there's no right or wrong answer. I just want to know. What strategies do you use? Because here's the little dirty secret. Somerset has some fine qualities, but apparently we kind of aren't that great in teaching you how to read. We're pretty good at teaching you how to write. Last year's ACT scores were really good as far as writing is concerned. But the reading, which is weird because how do you know what to write unless you read? That's something for the philosophers. Anyway.
That's exactly what I got.
You got a good writing score, but not a good reading score?
Well, I mean, relatively a bad reading.
Relatively a good writing. Okay. Yeah. What was your ACT writing score?
Writing.
Is it an 8? Yeah, it's an 8. Okay, anyway, so if not, please do so. Please go to that survey and just do it at your leisure. Good news for you. I'm extending arts and crafts by 4 hours today. Now, good news. If you have decided that you would like to write the paper for the first summative, here's a little guide. I will hand this out to you. How you write a paper for me. This is how I want it written. After you get this, if you look at this and think, I don't know what this is asking, rest assured I will hold you by the hand and teach you how to write over the course of the semester. But if you want to write the first paper, you're telling me you know how to write, which is awesome. This is the format I want you to follow, so make sure you grab one of these. And I do happen to know that one of you in here definitely knows how to write a paper. I know for a fact that one of you. The rest of you, maybe. I don't know, though. I know. And I don't mean that just because this person happens to be brilliant, but I know he knows how to write a paper because he and I spent all of last year, working on that bad one. So I'm fairly confident that he'll nail it out of the park. The rest of you, I hope so. But remember, this first one, I'll be fairly forgiving. If you've instead decided to do a Google presentation, this is your little rubric. This is sort of how I want you to roll. And this will be something that I hand out soon. Question?
What if I do the Google presentation?
Awesome. I know you're not right. Let's cover some content first. I bet you were wondering, like, okay, when do we start learning stuff? Today. High five.
No, I need to go.
Yeah, good.
Okay, fine, good.
Yes, it is good. It is good.
Bye.
See you soon. Do you think both of us were joking around there? Or just one of us?
Just one.
I was joking around. No. Better mend that bridge soon. Okay. Previously, we had looked at this slide. There's Gracie. Previously, we had looked at this slide, although I think a bunch of you didn't. So if that's true of you, quick little recap of what we learned yesterday. The normal family, which is biological mother, biological father, biological children, is trending down in America. It is decreasing in occurrence. If I were to have you raise your hand, how many of you live with biological mother, biological father, and biological siblings? It would be a smaller percentage than had I asked the question 10, 20, 30 years ago. More and more of you are living with dad and other dad. Or this is the normal mom and my other mom. Or you live under the stairs. Or just dad, or just mom, or you're Batman and the butler. Or whatever. Okay, that is more and more. This is becoming less and less common. All these others are becoming more and more common. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm simply pointing out a fact. This circle right here is called a nuclear family. That's the definition. A nuclear family is biological mom, biological dad, biological siblings living in one house. 2.5 kids, a dog, a few TVs, and 2 cars. And you're asking, how do you have 2.5 kids?
A bird.
The extended family is on the rise. Or I'll throw out another term that's not up here, and it should be. Here we go. How many of you live in a boomerang house? You might not know. Very good. I'm just wondering if any of you know. I will soon give you the definition. But if you know you live in a boomerang house, I bet some of you do. I bet some of you live in a boomerang house. Or you will, in about 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you will live in a boomerang house. What's a boomerang? Or give me the quality of a boomerang as opposed to a stick. It comes back.
Why do you think
Maybe you live it? I don't know, but it might be. Do you know what a boomerang house is? Does anyone know what a boomerang house is?
You come back.
You come back. You go off to this thing called college, and then you suddenly realize, good God, I'm heavily in debt. I'll live back at home with mom and dad. You come back. You see, 50 years ago, you lived in a house, you went to college, you got a job, you moved out, you were gone. Oh, now you go to college, then you move back home with mom and dad, and they're delighted. Do any of you have older brothers and sisters that live at home? After they've already gone to college, they are now living at home because they have student debt. And they cannot afford to sort of start their lives until they pay off that debt. We've got 1, 2. Anybody else? A few. Okay, that is on the rise. It's sort of an interesting trend. I have 2 kids in college right now. I fully expect them to move back in. Right, and it's sort of the norm. It's the new normal. Okay, let's move on. Do you know what that is? That's a family tree. I am not going to do this. I bet you had this as an assignment. I would imagine that your 5th grade teacher said, now draw a family tree. And you made a family tree and you learned about mom and dad and where grandpa and grandma came from. You did all that stuff? Okay. We're not going to do that, but I do want to talk about this thing called descent and give you some definitions. And again, you might be wondering, that's nice that bilateral means both sides are equally important, but why should I remember this? Am I being held accountable in some way? Yes. Yes, you are being held accountable. I will want you to know that bilateral, by meaning 2, means that the family of Faza and the family of Muzza are of equal importance. How many of you live in a house where your mother took your father's name when they got married? Most of you. Do any of you live in a house? Now, this is becoming more and more frequent where father took mother's name. Nobody in here. Sorry. It's going to happen. Damn right. Okay. Very good. How many of you live in a hyphenated house? Both names, right? You know, sociologists, there are these things called sociologists. What they wonder is, that's great for the first time you do that, but what about like 4 or 5 generations from now, right? My name is Smith, Thompson, Jordan, and you're going to keep going because your father's hyphenated name will be added to your mother's hyphenated name for your new name, right? And on and on and on. Pretty soon we're just going to have acronyms. It's just going to be the first letter of each last name.
That's like isn't that what like Hispanic culture sometimes does?
Is that true?
Yeah.
You know more than I.
Big list.
A big list, yeah. Spanish are known for big families. Yep, that's true. Okay. Anyway, American society has generally been a patrilineal society. We are historically patrilineal. Does anyone know what that means? Without looking. Yes. Without looking. Don't look.
The father is like the main person.
Zafaza, right? It's the father's house. Most of you raised your hand. One way of indicating that that's true is your mother adopted father's name. Now, that doesn't mean father's a dominant ruler, but it just means that the society is. Generally, American society is this way, and that's because we came out of European society, which also seemed to be this way. But there are also matrilineal societies where the mothers sort of rule the roost, familial ways. The Iroquois, when husband married wife, they moved into mother's house. Mothers ruled the roost. Okay. Any questions here? I'm going to just keep going with some other sort of interesting things here. We are going to now address this thing called authority patterns, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to talk about the rubrics, and then we're going to start talking about the flag, and then you'll have the rest of the hour to do whatever you want. But here's our last slide for today. Something called authority pattern. As soon as I get to your authority pattern, just make note, yep, that's what it's like in our household. Well, before I show that, no raising your hands here, but think about your own house. When you're in trouble, which one do you fear? Who you don't have to say out loud here, but which one? Is it where mom's the softie and dad's the disciplinarian, or the other way around, or they do the annoying tag team, right? Where mom yells at you and then dad yells at you, and of course, what do you say? Mom already talked to me about it, right? Or here's another way of asking the same question. When you want the car, who do you know you go to? Who is it who will say, no? Or who will be like, eh? Or do they do what we do in our house? Ask your mother. And then what does she say? Ask your father. I already asked my father. Or how many of you, I'm sure nobody in here has ever done this, because you're all angels, I'm sure. But you'll say, mom said I could take the car. And you never talk to mom. You're a liar. You're a liar. Oh. Okay, anyway. Here are some different types of authority patterns. Which one's your house? Dad. Dad's the authoritarian figure in your house, right? You live in a patriarchy. Patriarchy, right? Dad. Look at those dads. Or you live in a matriarchy. Mom. Mom makes the decision. Now, it's obvious if you just live with mom. If you just live with mom, you live in a matriarchy. Okay? There's really no other options. Okay? Or maybe both. Oh, so annoying. I don't know what this has to do with anything. I just liked it. Mommy, when I grow up, I want to help smash the white, racist, homophobic, patriarchal, stupid paradigm too, says Sally. Isn't that awesome? Look at sweet Sally. She's going to break the wheel. Some of you understand what I just said there. Some of you get it. It's a Game of Thrones. Okay. Any questions here? That's enough of that. I am now going to pass out to you something that will be a big part of your life for the next couple weeks. This is something we will do entirely in class, so there's no need for you to stress out over another bit of homework. I just want us to start thinking about this thing called the Pledge of Allegiance. How many of you said it this morning? You stood up and said the Pledge of Allegiance. The rest of you. How many of you did not say the Pledge of Allegiance this morning? Let's try that again, because that doesn't add up. How many of you said the pledge this morning? Nice and high. How many of you did not? How many of you did not, but you were in the building, in a classroom? That's interesting. I'd love to know why not. By the way, I am not saying you should have.
Are you pro?
That's what you just said.
I meant to say anti, but I said pro.
Anti what?
There.
You and I are gonna have fun in a few days.
That's an odd thing to say.
She, my God, sorry. He just equated not saying the pledge to being anti-American. And this is America. You have a First Amendment constitutional right to free speech and free thought. You are free to think that. Allow me to retort.
This is okay.
Exercising your right to not recite the pledge is America. Oh, yeah.
Just as Americans say.
We have the right to protest, and we have the right to free speech. If I choose to not say the pledge, I am exercising my First Amendment rights. You could argue. You are free to disagree with it. Yes, dear. Of course. Okay. So there's that part in the pledge that this is going to, and it's those two words. It's those two words. And it's the two words under God. And that's where this is going. Now, before I continue, I want to make sure that no one goes home and says, Mr. Potter's anti-religious.
Probably saying.
How do you know? That was a joke. Okay. I am not arguing one way or the other. What I want you to do is maybe for the first time think about what you're doing when you stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, which is sort of interesting because Wisconsin law requires that the pledge is said in schools. Did you notice what I didn't say is required?
Students.
You don't have to say it. It has to be said in schools. This is a school, it's said. But there's nothing that says that you have to stand up. Now, you might have had an experience where you don't stand up and then you get the glare of your fellow students and you get don't you love America? Which is fine. He has the right to say that. And so there's this peer pressure to stand and participate. What's fascinating about that is, let me ask this question. Do you think peer pressure is real pressure? Is that real? Let me give you another example of what I'm talking about. How many of you have been to Disney World? Disney World.
I've been to Disneyland.
Probably at Disneyland too, right? I believe they have this ride at Mall of America too. A ride where you sit in a chair and then you think you're hang gliding, right? You're not. You're like looking at a movie screen, but the screen is so big, and then the chairs sort of move, and so you think you're hang gliding or flying or something like that. Anybody been on a ride like that?
Yeah.
Or you can imagine what it's like. When you're on that ride, are you flying?
No.
But you think you are. You think you're flying, but you're not flying.
You're supposed to think you are.
When a student decides not to stand or say the pledge, and suddenly the glares come from fellow students, or maybe even the teacher, is that real pressure or is that self-perceived pressure? I'm not saying there's an answer here. I'm just saying think about it just a little bit. Are they really glaring at you, or do you just think they're glaring at you because of what you're doing? And maybe one person's like, hey, look at that. And then suddenly they all stared at me. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign each one of you one of these 4 documents. Now, there should only be 4. Some of you have a front and a back. You should only have documents. Does anyone have one that doesn't have anything? You should only have documents 2, 5, 8, and 10. 2, 5, 8, and 10. You can cross out the other documents if you have them. The only documents that you are going to be held accountable for are documents 2, 5, 8, and 10. Okay? I'm simply going to go around the room and give you a number, 2, 5, 8, or 10. And you might ask, well, why don't you just make them 1, 2, 3, 4? This is how I roll, people. 2, 5, 8, 10. Ready? I will instruct you what you're doing with this document in a minute. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8, 10. 2, 5, 8. Okay? You all know what document you are now being asked to do something with. And this isn't hard. You'll be able to finish this in a few minutes. Okay? What I want you to do is read your document. It's a paragraph. And figure out, can you figure out whether the document is arguing that the words under God should be removed or left alone? Okay? So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what do you think the argument is being made here? And you will answer, this person is arguing that the word should be removed, or this person is arguing that the word should be left alone. Okay? The next question I will have is, why? Why? Why should the words be removed? Why should the words be left alone? What is the reason? It's probably beyond cause, which isn't a reason. Right? I want to know the reason that Michael Newdow believes whatever it is that he believes. I almost slipped there and gave you that answer, but I'm not gonna. Right? So Yes or no, and why? I would also like to know who is doing the talking here. You'll notice, by the way, those of you who had document 2, look at that. Look who's speaking. Look who's speaking. Sort of interesting. These are bigwigs. These are all bigwigs. If you had document 8, your speaker is not a person. It's a thing.
Michael Newdow
Things
isn't
can
a
talk.
person? Michael Newdow isn't a person.
Document. What did I say?
8.
You said it.
Damn it, I made a mistake. 2, 5, 8, and 10, right?
Yeah.
Document 5, your speaker is a thing. Sorry about that. And document 10, thing. Okay, so know who your speaker is. Yes or no to the question, should it be removed, and why? Have that ready for, say, tomorrow. Okay, you walk in the door tomorrow. You are ready to rock and or roll with that? Okay. Let me hand out, and then you'll have a nice chunk of time here, about 15 or so minutes. I am now handing out sort of the rubric for what I'm looking for if you choose to have a Google presentation or something visual that you're going to decide to go with as far as your first summative. This is sort of what I'm looking for. Okay, who wants them? Anybody in this row wants the Google slide option? Nobody in this room. This room? Yes. That one. Will you pass that? This row? This row? Yeah, you can look at both of the side. This row? This row? How about this row? This is the paper rubric. This is if you're writing a 4 to 6 paragraph paper. Before I've taught you how to write a 4 to 6 paragraph paper, but you're going to take a shot anyway. Awesome. Who wants? Love the comment.
Wait, that one's for the paper?
This is the paper.
Oh, the one you're handing out right now?
Yeah. This row? Nope. This row? Yeah. Okay. This row? 1.
Oh, it's
This
just
row
this.
3. Again, you can look at both. Decide later. Great. Everyone, which one do you want? Visual. Paper. Paper. Okay. Right. Waiting. If you still need something, come up here. Paper, visual.
Thank you.
Let me just read through the paper rubric first. I'm just going to kind of quickly read through it. This is based on how the English department wants you to write papers. The body of the paper follows the same format. You make a topic sentence, you provide context, you provide evidence, and you provide analysis. Those of you who have been in this building for a while, and all of you have, this should sound familiar. Topic sentence, context, evidence, analysis. It's how you write papers in this building. Okay? You just follow top going down. So your first paragraph is going to have a hook, a roadmap, and a thesis. Your second, third, fourth, and fifth paragraphs will be arguing both sides of whatever your question is with a topic sentence, context. Context is why this matters. Why is this important? Who cares? Evidence, that's where you're going to quote, and then analysis. What does the quote mean? Including an example. That's paragraphs 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then paragraph 6 is the conclusion. This is something I'm going to hold your hand with as far as writing a paper. We're going to write together, we're going to write a paper about the pledge. But some of you think you know. Awesome. I love it. Go for it. And then this is the presentation rubric. Basically what I'm looking for is, do you have the required information somewhere in it? But I don't want words with more words and then more words. A slide presentation doesn't have the first word up here and then the last word down here with lots of commas and ands. Good God, that's boring. I want visuals. I want bulleted information. charts, graphs, short video clips, that sort of thing. That's what I'm looking for. So make sure that is what's going on. Okay. Again, the first time you do this, I will be pretty forgiving. Do you have any questions? Wonderful. So I do want to give you a nice chunk of time here. So this class goes until 35. So you still have about 15 minutes. 15 minutes. You have a computer. You know what your topic is. You know what your output is. You have access to SIRS, which is required, right? SIRS is a require. Where's the require? Where's the sheet? On your sheet, it says you have to use SIRS. You have to use SIRS. At least once. Use SIRS. Okay. I'll put on a little Mozart. We'll be rocking. Jack, why isn't my sound working? Fix it. Everyone needs a jack. No, you have to choose one of the topics that I listed on that sheet. I'm sorry, were you busy?
Is this the rubric for, or is this the rubric for this assignment?
Right.
or- Okay.
Yeah, you got it. Smart part's not on, is it? Just plug in there. I did it.
Wow.
I did it without Jack's help. Thank you, Jack.
Yep.
This makes you smarter.